The phone vibrated against my desk for the fifth time in 10 minutes. Dad's name flashed across the screen again, and my stomach twisted into that familiar knot. I let it ring, just like the previous 4 calls, knowing exactly what he wanted. My name is Willow, and I've spent the last decade being my family's personal ATM. Just answer it, Jessica said from across our shared office space, not bothering to look up from her computer. He'll keep calling until you do. I sighed and picked up on the 6th ring. Hi, Dad. Finally. Why haven't you been answering? I've been trying to reach you all morning. His voice carried that fake cheerfulness that always preceded a request for money. I'm at work, Dad, like most people at 11 on a Tuesday. Well, this is important. Remember that Mercedes I showed you last weekend? The dealer called. They're willing to drop the price by $5,000. It's a steal, honey. I just need you to co-sign the loan. My chest tightened. Dad, we talked about this. I'm not co-signing for a luxury car. But sweetie, you know how much I need a reliable vehicle. My old Civic is falling apart. Your Civic is only 3 years old, I reminded him. The one I helped you buy, remember? The fake cheerfulness vanished. I don't understand why you're being so difficult about this. After everything I've done for you. Dad, stop! I glanced at Jessica, who was now watching me with concern. I can't keep doing this. The house down payment last year, the boat the year before that. The boat was an investment that you sold 3 months later at a loss. I pinched the bridge of my nose. I'm trying to save for my own future. I can't keep... Your own future? He scoffed. What about family? You make good money at that fancy tech job. What kind of daughter refuses to help her father? I do help. I've always helped. But a Mercedes? That's not help. That's... selfish, he spat. That's what you are. Selfish. Sitting in your nice office, making your nice salary, while your father drives around in a piece of junk. Jessica mouthed, hang up at me. But I couldn't move. Your sister would help if she could, he continued. But she's struggling with her new business. Your mother agrees with me. We've given you everything, and this is how you repay us? Given me everything? The words burst out before I could stop them. Dad, I worked 3 jobs through college. I paid my own tuition. Because we taught you responsibility, and now you're throwing it in our faces. My phone buzzed with a text. It was from Mom. Please help your father with this. You know how he gets. I can't do this anymore, I said quietly. I'm sorry, but no. I won't co-sign for the car. Fine. His voice turned cold. Remember this moment, Willow? Remember how you turned your back on family when we needed you? The line went dead. I stared at my phone, hands shaking. You okay? Jessica asked softly. No. I slumped in my chair. He'll tell everyone I abandoned them. Mom will cry. Freya will stop talking to me again. Good, Jessica said firmly. Let them all throw their tantrums. You need to stop setting yourself on fire to keep them warm. My phone buzzed again. A text from Freya. Way to make Dad upset. Again. Thanks a lot. They're already starting, I muttered, showing Jessica the message. Block them all, she suggested. Just for today. Give yourself some peace. I shook my head. They'll show up at my apartment if I do that. They always do. Then let them come. I'll be there with wine and pepper spray. That made me laugh, but it came out sounding more like a sob. I don't understand how they can't see it. The constant demands, the guilt trips, the manipulation. Am I crazy for thinking this isn't normal? You're not crazy, Jessica assured me. They're taking advantage of you because you let them, because you care. But caring shouldn't bankrupt you, emotionally or financially. My phone lit up with another call from Dad. I declined it, feeling simultaneously guilty and relieved. You know what the worst part is? I said, staring at the screen. Part of me still wants to give in. Just to keep the peace. Just to make it all stop. That's exactly why you can't, Jessica replied. Because it won't stop. It never stops with people like your dad. Give him the Mercedes today, he'll want a yacht tomorrow. She was right. I knew she was right. But as my phone continued to buzz with messages from my family, each one dripping with disappointment and accusations, I wondered if standing my ground was worth the cost. I just didn't realize then that the real cost would be measured in secrets, not dollars. 3 days after the Mercedes incident, my sister Freya's Instagram story showed our entire family at Mom and Dad's weekly Sunday dinner. I hadn't received an invitation. My phone rang. It was Barrett, my colleague and mentor. "You coming to the team lunch?" he asked. "Can't. I need to sort through this mail that keeps arriving for my dad." "At your apartment? That's weird. Tell me about it." I picked up another envelope with my dad's name on it. "This is the third one this week." "Open them," Barrett suggested. "That's a federal offense." "So is using someone else's address to hide from creditors." Before I could respond, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Freya standing in the hallway, arms crossed. I opened the door. "Hey." She brushed past me into the apartment. "Why are you doing this to Dad?" "Doing what? Refusing to buy him a luxury car I can't afford?" "He's been crying, Willow. Actually crying." She spun to face me. "He told us everything. How you've been pulling away from the family. How you told him you never want to see him again." "What?" I stared at her. "That's not what happened at all. I just said no to co-signing a loan." "Then why weren't you at dinner yesterday?" "Because no one told me about it." Freya rolled her eyes. "Mom posted in the family group chat." "What family group chat?" She pulled out her phone, scrolled for a moment, then froze. "Oh, you're not in it?" "Exactly." I walked to my kitchen counter and picked up the stack of mysterious mail. "And what about these? Why is Dad having his mail sent to my address?" "How should I know?" But she wouldn't meet my eyes. "Freya, what's going on?" "Nothing's going on. God, you're so paranoid." She started pacing. "This is exactly what Dad was talking about. You're always looking for conspiracies, always trying to make him look bad." My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. "Your mom just posted on Facebook about ungrateful children who forget their roots. Want me to come over?" "Look at this." I showed Freya the text. "This is what they do. They twist everything. Because you hurt them. Dad just wanted your help. With a Mercedes. After I already helped with a house down payment, a boat, your business startup. I'm paying you back for that." "Are you?" "Because I haven't seen a payment in 3 months." She flinched. "Business is slow right now, you know that." "I do know that, which is why I haven't said anything. But Dad doesn't get the same pass. He has a job, a house, a perfectly good car." The doorbell rang again. This time it was Mom. "Oh, good, you're both here," she said, stepping inside. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying. "Willow, honey, we need to talk about your father." "Mom, please." "He's not sleeping. Barely eating." She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "All because his daughter thinks he's not worth helping." "That's not what. I raised you better than this," she continued. "Both of you. Family helps family. Period." "Then why wasn't I invited to dinner?" I challenged. "You know how sensitive your father is. He needed time to process your rejection." Another envelope slipped from the stack in my hands, landing face up on the floor. Freya snatched it before I could reach it. "Final notice," she read aloud, then went pale. "What is it?" I asked. She shoved the envelope in her pocket. "Nothing, just junk mail." Mom's phone chimed. She checked it and suddenly looked anxious. "We should go. Your father needs us." "Mom, wait." But they were already heading for the door. As Freya passed me, she whispered, "Don't ask about the letters, please." They left me standing there, surrounded by mysterious mail and even more mysterious secrets. My phone rang again. Barrett. "Still sorting mail?" he asked. "Something's wrong," I said. "Really wrong. My family's acting stranger than usual, and these letters—" "Open one." "Barrett." "Look, either open them or give them back to your dad. But don't become an unwitting accomplice to whatever's going on." I picked up an envelope, turning it over in my hands. What if I don't like what I find? What if your dad's counting on exactly that fear to keep you quiet? After we hung up, I stared at the stack of mail. Each envelope felt like a ticking bomb, ready to explode my already fractured family into even smaller pieces. But as I reached for the first one, my door burst open. Dad stood there, out of breath, eyes wild. Don't, he said. Don't you dare open those letters. Give me the letters, Willow. Dad's voice shook as he stepped into my apartment. I clutched the envelopes tighter. Not until you tell me what's going on. They're my letters. Using someone else's mail is a federal offence. So is using someone else's address to hide from debt collectors. His face darkened. Who told you that? No one had to tell me. I'm not stupid, Dad. I moved the letters behind my back. Why are you having mail sent here? He tried to circle around me, but I backed away. It's complicated business matters. Nothing for you to worry about. Business matters. You're a high school teacher. I have investments. He lunged for the letters, but I dodged. Damn it, Willow, give them to me. Not until you explain. There's nothing to explain. His shout made me jump. I am your father. Those are my letters. Give them to me now. My phone buzzed on the counter. Dad's eyes darted to it. Don't answer that. I reached for it anyway. A text from Barrett. Everything okay? Called the police just in case. They're doing a welfare check. Dad saw the message and paled. You called the cops on me? I didn't. But my friend did because he heard how scared I sounded on the phone earlier. Scared? Of your own father? He laughed, but it sounded hollow. What kind of daughter are you? The kind who's tired of being manipulated. I straightened my spine. Either tell me what's in these letters, or leave. Those are your choices. A knock at the door made us both freeze. Police. We're responding to a welfare check. Dad's expression crumpled. Please, he whispered. Please don't do this to me. For a moment I wavered. He looked so broken, so desperate. But then I remembered all the times he'd used that same look to get his way. I opened the door. 2 officers stood in the hallway. Everything okay here? One asked, eyeing Dad. Yes, Dad said quickly. Just a family discussion. Mom? The officer looked at me. I took a deep breath. My father's been having mail sent to my address without my permission. When I threatened to open it, he burst in and tried to take it by force. That's not... I would never, Dad sputtered. Sir, please step into the hallway, the second officer said. As they led Dad out, my phone rang. It was Freya. What did you do? She demanded. Mom's hysterical. Did you know about the letters? A pause. That's not important. It is to me. And apparently to Dad, since he just tried to grab them from me. He what? Her voice softened. Are you okay? No, Freya, I'm not okay. Our father is clearly in some kind of trouble and everyone's covering for him. Why? She was quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. Check the return addresses, she finally said. But don't tell Dad I told you. I looked at the envelopes. They were from different collection agencies, a law firm, and something called Maritime Investment Solutions. Freya, what did he do? I don't know details, just... He made some bad investments, lost money, a lot of money. Whose money? Another long pause. Remember Aunt Claire's inheritance? The one she left for our college funds? My stomach dropped. He didn't. He said he could triple it. Make enough for both our educations plus extra. She sounded close to tears. That's why I never went to college. There was nothing left. The officers came back inside. Mom, your father's agreed to leave. Do you want to press charges? I shook my head, still processing Freya's revelation. After they left, I sat on my couch, spreading the letters across my coffee table. My phone kept buzzing. Mom, Dad, unknown numbers. I ignored them all. Barrett called next. Just checked on you, saw the police leaving, you okay? He stole our college fund, I said numbly. That's why Freya never went to school. That's why I had to work 3 jobs. He lost it all and never told us. Open the letters, Willow. I'm scared. You should be. But not of what's in those letters. Be scared of what happens if you keep letting him hide his secrets. I picked up the first envelope, the one from the law firm. Barrett. Yeah. Will you stay on the phone while I read them? Of course. My hands trembled as I tore open the envelope. As I read the first few lines, my breath caught. Oh, God, I whispered. What is it? It's worse than we thought. So much worse. The letter detailed a lawsuit not just about lost investments, but about fraud. And Dad's name wasn't the only one listed as a defendant. Mine was too. He forged my signature, I told Jessica and Barrett over coffee the next morning. Multiple times. On investment documents, loan applications, everything. That's prison time, Jessica said, gripping her mug. You're pressing charges, right? Before I could answer, a man in a crisp suit approached our table. Willow? I nodded cautiously. I'm Zane Wallace. We need to talk about your father's debts. I'm not involved in my father's finances. He placed a folder on the table. According to these documents, you are. Your signature appears on several high-risk investments dating back 3 years. Those signatures are forged. Can you prove that? I can, Barrett interjected. I was her supervisor when some of these were supposedly signed. She was in Singapore with our team on those dates. Zane sat down uninvited. That's very interesting. Would you be willing to make a statement to that effect? Wait, I said. Before anyone makes statements, I need to understand what's happening. How much money are we talking about? Zane opened his folder. The initial investment was $450,000. The inheritance, I whispered, which was leveraged into loans totaling just over $2 million. Jessica choked on her coffee. $2 million? Most of it went into a supposed luxury boat-flipping scheme. Maritime Investment Solutions promised returns of 300% within 6 months. The boat, I said. The one he bought and sold at a loss. That wasn't just one boat, was it? It was supposed to be 15 boats. The company took the investment money and vanished. Zine leaned forward. Your father then took out additional loans to try to recover the losses. My phone buzzed. Freya. Dad's in the hospital. Mum says come now. I have to go. I stood up. My father's in the hospital. Convenient timing, Zane remarked. Just remember, Willow, you have 24 hours to decide if you're a victim or an accomplice. At the hospital, Mom paced the waiting room while Freya sat stone-faced in a corner. What happened? I asked. Panic attack, Mom said. He collapsed at school. The doctors say his blood pressure is dangerously high. Did they say why? Because his ungrateful daughter is threatening to destroy this family, Mom snapped. Mom! Freya stood up. Stop! I saw the letters too. This isn't Willow's fault. You don't understand. I understand he stole my college fund. Freya's voice rose. I understand he forged Willow's signature. I understand he's been lying to all of us. A doctor approached before Mom could respond. Family of Edward? We nodded. His blood pressure's stabilized, but he's asking for Willow. Mom grabbed my arm. Fix this. Whatever he needs, just fix it. Dad looked small in the hospital bed, monitors beeping around him. When he saw me, his eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, he whispered. I was trying to give you girls everything. By stealing from us, I was going to pay it back. The returns were guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed, Dad. You gambled our future and lost. I can fix it. I just need time. And maybe if you don't tell anyone about the signatures. I stepped back. Are you seriously asking me to cover up your fraud? For the family, Willow. Think of your mother, your sister. I am thinking of them. That's why I called Zane Wallace this morning. His heart monitor spiked. You didn't. I did. I'm meeting him tomorrow to sign a statement about the forgeries. They'll arrest me. Maybe. Or maybe you'll finally face consequences for your actions. He grabbed my hand. Please, I'm begging you. I'll do anything. Then tell the truth. To everyone. No more lies. No more manipulation. I can't. I pulled my hand away. Then neither can I. As I turned to leave, he called out, If you do this, you're no longer my daughter. I paused at the door. You stopped being my father the moment you stole my sister's future. In the hallway, I found Freya waiting. I heard everything, she said. I'm sorry. She shook her head. Don't be. I'm coming with you tomorrow to make my own statement. Freya, he has to stop, Willow. One way or another, this has to stop. My phone buzzed with a text from Zane. Meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Bring any evidence you have. It's time to end this. I showed Freya the message. She squared her shoulders and nodded. It's time, she agreed. Behind us, we could hear Mom crying in Dad's room. But for the first time in years, her tears didn't make me want to fix everything. Some things needed to break before they could be rebuilt. Your father emptied your mother's retirement account last month, Zane said, sliding another document across his desk. Used it to pay off some of the smaller debts. Mom, who'd insisted on coming to the meeting, crumpled in her chair. That's impossible. Edward would never. He did, I said quietly. Just like he forged my signature. Just like he stole Freya's college fund. The pattern is clear, Zane continued. When one source of money dried up, he moved to another. Family savings, home equity, retirement accounts, even his students' field trip funds. The school kids, Freya's voice cracked. Dad stole from children? Zane nodded. The school board is launching their own investigation. Mom started sobbing. There must be some mistake. No mistake. Barrett placed a stack of papers on the desk. These are Willow's travel records proving she was out of the country when several documents were supposedly signed. We also have security footage from our office showing Edward accessing Willow's personal files after hours. He had a key to my apartment, I explained. Said he needed it for emergencies. What he needed was access to your personal information, Zane said. Bank statements, tax returns, anything he could use to create convincing forgeries. Mom shook her head. Why didn't he tell me? I could have helped. Because it was never about need, Freya said bitterly. It was about control. The door opened and Jessica rushed in. Sorry I'm late, but you need to see this. She pulled up a Facebook post on her phone. Dad's just announced he's taking a teaching position in Mexico. Says he's leaving tonight. He's running, Zane said, already reaching for his phone. I'll alert the authorities. Wait, Mom straightened up. I know where he'd go first. He keeps an emergency bag in our storage unit. Been paranoid about having one ever since watching some survival show. Mom, I stared at her. Are you actually helping us catch Dad? She wiped her eyes. He stole my retirement, Willow. 30 years of savings. And worse, he used you girls. No more. Zane hung up his phone. Police are on their way to the storage facility. But we should go too. Sometimes family can talk sense better than handcuffs. We found Dad stuffing bags into his car outside the storage unit. He froze when he saw us. Edward, Mom called out, it's over. Nothing's over, he snapped. I just need time. The investments will pay off, you'll see. There are no investments, Freya shouted. It was all a scam and you fell for it. Then instead of admitting it, you kept digging deeper. I did it for you, for this family. No, I stepped forward. You did it for yourself, because you couldn't admit you'd failed. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Please, he begged, just let me go. I'll send money back when I can. Like you've been sending Freya's loan payments? I asked. Or replacing Mum's retirement? His face hardened. You did this. You turned them against me. You did that yourself, Mum said. Every lie, every theft, every manipulation, that was all you. The police cars pulled up, lights flashing. Edward Boyd? An officer called out. Step away from the vehicle. Dad looked at each of us in turn. Mom, Freya, me. His face crumpled. I just wanted to be the father you deserved, he whispered. Then be one now, I said. Face what you've done. Take responsibility. As the officers approached, Dad's shoulders sagged. He held out his wrists. I'm sorry, he said as they cuffed him. I'm so sorry. We watched them lead him away. Mom gripped my hand on one side, Freya's on the other. What happens now? Freya asked. Now, Zane said. We start untangling his mess. It won't be easy, but with your statements and evidence, we can protect you from his debts. Prove fraud. And Dad? He'll face charges. But cooperation goes a long way with judges. Mom squared her shoulders. Then we'll cooperate. All of us. No more secrets. Later, at my apartment, Freya found an old photo album. Dad at my graduation, beaming with pride. Dad teaching her to ride a bike. Dad building our treehouse. Were any of those moments real? She wondered. They were, I said. And that's what makes this so hard. He was a good father once, before the lies consumed him. Before he decided looking successful was more important than being honest, Mom added. My phone buzzed. A text from the county jail. Dad requesting a visit. "Are you going to go?" Freya asked. I showed them my response. "Yes. But this time we'd talk about the truth. Because sometimes loving someone means letting them face the consequences of their actions, even if those consequences hurt us too. Especially then." The county jail's visiting room smelled like industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Dad sat across from me in his orange jumpsuit, looking 10 years older than when I'd last seen him 3 days ago. "They're charging me with 37 counts of fraud," he said without preamble. "I know. Zane showed me the indictment. Your mother won't take my calls. Can you blame her? You stole her entire retirement fund." He flinched. "I was going to replace it. Double it even." "With what money, Dad? The fake boat business? The pyramid schemes?" "They weren't pyramid schemes." He slammed his hand on the table, making the guard look over. Lowering his voice, he continued. "They were legitimate investment opportunities." "Then why forge my signature? Why not just invest your own money?" "Because," he deflated, "because I didn't have any. I hadn't had any for years." What happened? It started small, borrowing from one account to cover another, taking risks to make up losses. Then the housing market crashed in '08, and suddenly the investment properties I'd mortgaged were underwater. "So you took Freya's college fund." He nodded miserably. "I convinced myself it was temporary, that I'd make it back before she needed it." "But you didn't." "No. Each investment promised bigger returns. Guaranteed," they said. "I just needed more capital." He trailed off. "I used your name because you were successful. Banks trusted you." "They trusted me because I never lied to them." The guard announced 5 minutes remaining. "Dad, I need to know. Was any of it real? The constant demands for money, the guilt trips, the manipulation. Was that all just to cover your tracks?" He stared at his hands. "At first, no. I really did need help. But then, it became easier to ask you than admit how bad things were. Easier to blame you for saying no than face my own failures." "And Mom? Did she know?" "Not everything. She knew we had financial troubles, but..." He swallowed hard. "I lied to her too. Told her the retirement account was growing when I was actually draining it." "The school kids' field trip money, Dad? Really?" Tears spilled down his cheeks. "I hit rock bottom. Convinced myself I could replace it before anyone noticed, but they did notice, didn't they? The school board's pressing charges separately." He nodded slowly. "Good. They should. I deserve this." The admission hung between us, the first honest thing he'd said in years. "Zane says if you cooperate fully, tell them everything about the investment scams, they might reduce the charges. Will you..." He hesitated. "Will you visit me again? If I do?" "That depends." "On what?" "On whether you're really ready to change. No more lies, no more manipulation, just truth even when it's ugly." The guard called time. Dad stood up, then paused. "There's something else you should know, something I never told anyone." "What?" "There's a storage unit in Fremont, Unit 247. The key's hidden in my classroom desk, top right drawer. Inside the unit..." He took a shaky breath. "Inside are records. Every transaction, every loan, every fraud. I kept them all. Why are you telling me this now?" "Because it's time to stop running. From the truth, from consequences, from myself." He wiped his eyes. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want to finally do one honest thing as your father." As the guard led him away, my phone buzzed. A text from Freya. "How'd it go?" I stepped outside the jail into the bright sunlight and called her. "He confessed," I said, "to everything. And there's more. A storage unit with records. Mum's here with me. She wants to know if we should go get them." I heard Mum's voice in the background. "Tell her we'll all go together." "Pick me up," I said. "But first, call Zane. He needs to see what's in that unit too." An hour later, we stood watching as Zane and 2 investigators catalogued boxes of documents. "This is everything," Zane said, flipping through files. "Account numbers, contact lists, even instructions for forging signatures. Your father documented his entire criminal enterprise." "Why would he keep all this?" Freya wondered. Maybe part of him wanted to be caught, Mom said quietly. Wanted it to end. My phone lit up with a message from the jail. Dad again. Did you find the records? I typed back, yes. Why did you keep them? His response came quickly. Because the truth always comes out eventually. I just needed to be brave enough to face it. I showed the message to Mom and Freya. Do you believe him? Freya asked. I believe he's finally stopped lying, I said, to us and to himself. It's a start, Mom said, squeezing my hand. A painful one, but a start. The courthouse buzzed with tension as Dad's sentencing hearing began. 3 months had passed since he'd revealed the storage unit, and today we'd learn his fate. All rise, the bailiff called out. Mom gripped my hand as the judge entered. Freya sat on my other side, Barrett and Jessica behind us for support. Even some of Dad's former students had shown up, their parents watching with mixed expressions of anger and pity. Before I deliver my sentence, the judge began, would the defendant like to make a statement? Dad stood slowly, papers trembling in his hands. He turned to face the courtroom. I've written and rewritten this statement dozens of times, he said, trying to explain, to justify. But there is no justification. I betrayed everyone in this room, my family, my students, my community. He paused, swallowing hard. To my daughters, Willow and Freya. I stole more than money from you. I stole your trust, your futures, your belief in your father. To my wife, I destroyed the retirement we spent 30 years building. To my students, his voice cracked, I took advantage of your innocence and your parents' faith in me. Some of the parents were crying now. One mother hugged her daughter closer. The prosecution says I did this out of greed, but the truth is worse. I did it out of pride. I couldn't admit I'd failed, that I'd made bad decisions. Each lie bred another lie until lying became easier than truth. Freya squeezed my hand. I don't ask for leniency, Dad continued. I ask only for a chance to make amends. I've provided every record, every contact, helping the authorities track down the investment schemes that took advantage of not just me, but countless others. It doesn't erase what I did, but maybe it can prevent others from making my mistakes. The judge studied him for a long moment. Mr. Boyd, your cooperation has been noted. However, the severity and duration of your crimes cannot be ignored. This court sentences you to 8 years in state prison, with possibility of parole after 5 years. Mom let out a small sob. Additionally, the judge continued, you are ordered to pay restitution to all victims, including the school district and your family members. As the bailiff led Dad away, he caught my eye, mouthed, I'm sorry one last time. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. How do you feel about your father's sentence? One thrust a microphone at me. Leave them alone. Barrett stepped in front of us. They've been through enough. Back at Mom's house, we sat in stunned silence until Zane arrived. The restitution hearing is next week, he said. But I have good news. The information your father provided helped us crack open 3 major investment fraud rings. The recovered funds will help offset some of your losses. What about Mom's retirement? Freya asked. Insurance will cover about 60%. The rest. He hesitated. I'll help, I said. Willow, no, Mom protested. You've done enough. I'm not doing it out of obligation this time. I'm doing it because I want to, because we're family. Real family, not the twisted version Dad created. Me too, Freya added. My business is finally turning a profit. We'll do this together. Jessica cleared her throat from the doorway. Speaking of together, Barrett and I have been talking to some people at work. We've set up a scholarship fund in your names for students affected by financial fraud. The first recipient, Barrett said, is going to be that bright kid from your dad's class, the one who lost his college savings in the field trip scandal. Fresh tears spilled down Mom's cheeks, but this time she was smiling. My phone buzzed. A message from Dad's prison account. Watched the news. Saw what you're doing with the scholarship fund. You're better people than I ever was. No, I typed back. We just learned from your mistakes. Later that night, as we sorted through Dad's old office, we found a photo album we'd never seen before. Pictures of him as a young teacher, idealistic and proud, photos of his students' achievements, their thank you notes, their graduation cards. He was a good man once, Mum said softly, before the lies consumed him. He can be again, Freya replied. In 5 years, maybe. Maybe, I agreed. But first, we heal, we rebuild. We show him what real family looks like. Because sometimes rock bottom isn't the end. Sometimes it's just the place where you finally stop digging and start climbing back toward the light. And this time, we'd climb together. The prison visiting room felt different this time. Warmer somehow, despite the same harsh lighting and institutional walls. The scholarship fund helped its 100th student today, I told Dad, sliding a photo across the table. This is Marcus. He's studying finance, wants to help people avoid investment scams. Dad picked up the photo with weathered hands. He looks determined. He is. Actually quoted your case in his application essay as a warning about pride and desperation. Good. Dad's voice roughened. That's good. Mum's retirement account is almost restored, I continued, between the recovered funds, insurance, and our monthly contributions. You shouldn't have had to do that. No, we shouldn't have. But fixing things together helped us heal. Freya and Mum are closer than ever. We have weekly dinners, real ones, not guilt trip sessions. He nodded slowly. And you? Are you still putting your life on hold for everyone else? Actually, I smiled. I'm starting my own company. Barrett's joining as co-founder. We're developing software to detect financial fraud patterns. Using my mistakes to help others. He shook his head. You always were smarter than me. Not smarter, just more honest, with myself and others. The guard announced visiting hours were ending. Before you go, Dad said, I need to show you something. He pulled out a worn notebook. My therapist suggested I track every lie I've ever told, every person I've hurt. It's not easy reading. Why show me? Because next week is my parole hearing. If they release me, I want to make things right. Real right. Not just promises. But I'll need help staying honest. I studied him, the grey hair, the lines around his eyes, the humble set of his shoulders. So different from the proud, manipulative man who'd once demanded a Mercedes. You've changed, I said. Had to. Lying was killing me, destroying everything I loved. But change isn't a destination, it's a daily choice. And if you're released, I've been offered a job, teaching financial literacy to ex-cons, using my experience to show where pride and desperation can lead. The guard stepped closer. Time's up. Dad stood, then hesitated. There's one more thing. Your sister's wedding next month. What about it? She asked if I'd give her away. If I'm released. He swallowed hard. I told her no. I blinked in surprise. Why? Because she deserves better than a father fresh from prison stealing her spotlight. Told her Barrett should do it. He's been more of a father figure than I ever was. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I hugged my father. That, I whispered, is what real love looks like. Putting someone else's needs before your pride. Back home, I found Mum and Freya going through wedding plans. How was he? Freya asked. I told them about the notebook, the job offer, the wedding decision. He really said Barrett should give me away, Freya's eyes welled up. Said you deserved better than headlines about your ex-con father. Mum wiped her eyes. That's not the Edward I married. That's not even the Edward who went to prison. That's someone better. My phone buzzed. A message from Zane. Parole board asked for my recommendation. Told them your father's case files are now required reading in fraud prevention training. His mistakes are literally teaching others. Thought you should know. I showed Mom and Freya the message. What do we do if they release him? Freya asked. We take it day by day, Mom said. Trust is earned, not given. Even with family. Especially with family. Speaking of family, I said. Barrett and Jessica are outside. Something about wedding dress shopping. Freya rushed to the window, then stopped. You know what? For the first time in my life, I'm not worried about the cost. Not because we have more money, but because we finally understand what really matters. And what's that? Mom asked. Honesty, support, real love, not the kind that comes with price tags and guilt trips. The doorbell rang. As Freya went to answer it, Mom touched my arm. Your father was right about one thing, she said. You are smarter than him. You learned that love isn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It's about showing up, being truthful, and sometimes it's about letting people face their consequences so they can become better. Outside, I heard Freya laughing with Jessica about veils and venues, normal sounds, happy sounds, the kind of sounds our family had almost lost to lies and manipulation. But we hadn't lost them. We'd fought for them, earned them back, one honest moment at a time, and that was worth more than all the mistakes.